The city was quiet at night, the streets dimly lit by flickering streetlights. Marcus Evans, a well-dressed black man in his early 40s, was driving home after a long day at work. He had spent the day in meetings, reviewing case files, his usual routine as a respected criminal defense attorney. But tonight, his life was about to take an unexpected turn. Just a few blocks from his house, the sudden flash of red and blue lights filled his rearview mirror. A police cruiser blared its siren behind him. Confused but calm, Marcus pulled over. Officer Bradley Carter, a man with a reputation for unfairly targeting black men, approached the car aggressively. "License and registration," he barked. Marcus handed them over without question. He had nothing to hide, but Officer Carter barely glanced at the documents before making his decision. "This car was reported stolen," Carter said, smirking. "That's impossible," Marcus replied, his voice even. "I own this car. Look at the registration." Carter ignored him. "Step out of the vehicle," he ordered. Before Marcus could protest, Carter yanked the door open, pulled him out, and slammed him against the car. "Don't resist," Carter shouted, though Marcus wasn't resisting at all. Handcuffs clicked shut around his wrists. Marcus remained silent, staring straight ahead. He knew this wasn't the end. The ride to the police station was silent. Marcus sat in the back of the cruiser, his wrists tight in the cold metal cuffs. He knew his rights, but he also knew that arguing with a racist cop on a power trip wouldn't help him tonight. He had defended too many clients who had been through the same nightmare. At the station, Carter dragged him inside, making sure the other officers saw. Some chuckled, recognizing Marcus. After all, he had won several high-profile cases, even against corrupt cops. "Well, well," one officer smirked. "The big-shot lawyer finally gets a taste of the system." Carter shoved Marcus onto a bench. "Let's see you talk your way out of this one, smart guy." Marcus kept his composure. "You're making a mistake," Carter grinned. "Nah, you just finally got caught." Without listening further, Carter ordered the booking officer to process Marcus. His fingerprints were taken, his mugshot snapped, and his belongings confiscated. Marcus sat in the holding cell, calm but calculating. He knew exactly what to do next. This wasn't just an arrest, this was personal. And by morning, Carter would regret it. The next morning, Marcus was released on bail. He didn't say a word as he left the station, but he had already planned his next move. By noon, he arrived at the courthouse dressed in a sharp black suit, his confidence unshaken. Today was not just another day, it was the moment he had been waiting for. As he walked into courtroom 5B, the room was buzzing. Officers, lawyers, and journalists had gathered, unaware of the irony that was about to unfold. Then, the door swung open. Officer Bradley Carter entered, smug and arrogant. He had just finished his shift and was ready to testify against a suspect from the night before. But as he looked toward the judge's bench, his confidence shattered. There, seated with an air of authority, wearing the black judicial robe, was Marcus Evans. Carter's face went pale. He stumbled, blinking in disbelief. The very man he had humiliated, arrested, and mocked was now presiding over his case. The courtroom fell into dead silence. Marcus adjusted his robe, leaned forward, and with a calm but firm voice said, "Officer Carter, you may step forward." Officer Carter's hands felt clammy as he stepped forward. The same arrogance he had displayed the night before was now gone. The weight of the situation hit him like a ton of bricks. Marcus sat tall, his expression unreadable. He had seen many officers like Carter, men who thought their badge gave them unchecked power. But today, the roles had reversed. "State your full name for the record," Marcus said, his voice steady. Carter cleared his throat. "Bradley Carter." The courtroom was silent, everyone waiting to see what would happen next. Marcus slowly flipped through the case file. "Officer Carter, you are here today because of multiple complaints filed against you, alleging excessive force, racial profiling, and abuse of power." Carter's jaw clenched. "Those are just false accusations," he muttered. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "False? The same way you falsely accused me of stealing my own car." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Carter's eyes darted around, realizing he had no escape. For the first time, he understood what it felt like to be powerless. Marcus leaned forward. "Do you still believe justice is in your favor?" Carter had no answer. Carter shifted uncomfortably as Marcus held up a thick folder. The judge's expression remained calm, but his eyes were sharp, piercing through Carter like a blade. "I have something interesting here," Marcus said, flipping through the documents. Multiple body cam recordings, witness testimonies, and citizen complaints, all pointing to a pattern of racial discrimination and abuse. Carter's face turned red. "This is ridiculous," he scoffed. "I've only ever done my job." Marcus tapped the courtroom screen, and a video began to play. The footage showed Carter pulling over a young black teenager, aggressively searching his backpack without cause. The boy pleaded, "I didn't do anything wrong." But Carter only laughed. Gasps filled the courtroom. The next clip showed Carter shoving an elderly black man against a car, accusing him of loitering when he was just waiting for a ride. Marcus let the silence linger before speaking. "Officer Carter, do you still claim these are false accusations?" Carter swallowed hard. I... He couldn't finish. Marcus leaned back. Abusing power comes with consequences. Carter's arrogance had vanished. For the first time in his career, he was the one being judged. Carter shifted in his seat, his confidence completely shattered. He had walked into the courtroom expecting another easy day. Now he was fighting to keep his badge. Marcus folded his hands. "Officer Carter, let's be clear. You falsely arrested me last night. You assumed guilt without evidence, just like in these cases." Carter's jaw tightened. I was just following protocol." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Protocol? Tell me, officer, is it protocol to arrest a man without checking his vehicle registration?" Carter swallowed. I made a mistake." "A mistake?" Marcus tapped the stack of complaints. "How many times have you made that same mistake with black citizens? Because according to these reports, it's happened at least 17 times. The courtroom gasped. Carter's hands balled into fists, but he couldn't deny the truth. Marcus continued, his voice unwavering. "The law doesn't protect officers who abuse their authority. You swore to serve and protect. Instead, you humiliated, intimidated, and oppressed." Carter had no defense. His usual power was useless here. Then Marcus delivered the final blow. "Officer Carter, do you believe you are above the law?" Silence. Carter's face was pale. He had never been in this position before, on the other side of the law. His usual smirk was gone, replaced by pure panic. Marcus leaned forward. "Let's talk about consequences." His tone was calm, but the weight of his words pressed down like a hammer. "Abuse of power is not just unethical, it's illegal." Carter glanced around the room, desperate for an ally. The officers in attendance avoided his gaze. Even the prosecutor, who had worked with him for years, remained silent. Marcus continued, flipping through the case files. "The department's Internal Affairs Division has been investigating you for months. Given the overwhelming evidence, the district attorney's office is considering criminal charges against you." Carter's eyes widened. "Criminal charges?" His voice cracked. Marcus nodded. "Excessive force, falsifying reports, racial discrimination, each one carries serious penalties." Carter's breathing became shallow. He had always thought his badge made him untouchable. But now, he wasn't the enforcer of the law, he was the accused. Marcus's final words sealed his fate. "Officer Carter, do you have anything to say in your defense?" Carter had no words left. Carter's throat felt dry. For the first time in his career, he was speechless. His usual arrogance had crumbled, replaced by sheer desperation. Marcus watched him closely. "No words?" he asked. "That's surprising. You had plenty to say last night when you falsely accused me." The courtroom was silent, waiting for Carter's response. He shifted in his seat, glancing. At the prosecutor as if begging for help, but none came. He was alone. Marcus exhaled slowly, then turned to the court clerk. "I am recommending that Officer Bradley Carter be formally suspended while an official investigation proceeds." Carter's head snapped up. "Suspended?" His voice was hoarse. Marcus didn't stop. "Furthermore, based on the evidence presented today, I am forwarding this case to the Attorney General's office for possible criminal prosecution. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Carter's face drained of color. He had spent years hiding behind his badge, believing himself untouchable. Now his own crimes had caught up with him. Marcus leaned forward. Justice isn't just for those in power. It's for everyone. Carter swallowed hard. His fate was no longer in his hands. The judge took a deep breath, letting the weight of the moment settle over the courtroom. Officer Carter sat frozen, his hands gripping the table so tightly that his knuckles turned white. "Officer Carter," the judge finally spoke, her voice steady but firm. "Given the overwhelming evidence against you, this court finds sufficient grounds to move forward with disciplinary action. Effective immediately, you are suspended without pay pending further investigation." Gasps echoed through the room. Carter's mouth fell open, his usual confidence shattered. You can't do this. I've served this department for years." Marcus remained calm. "And in those years, how many innocent lives did you destroy?" His words hit Carter like a slap. The judge raised her gavel. "This court takes allegations of abuse of power very seriously. If further evidence supports these claims, criminal charges will be pursued." Carter's chest heaved. Everything was falling apart. His badge, his career, his reputation, gone. Marcus stood tall. "This is justice, Officer Carter. No one is above the law." The gavel slammed down. The decision was final. Carter was no longer in control. Carter sat in stunned silence. The reality had hit him like a freight train. His career was over. No more authority, no more power. Just the cold truth that his actions had consequences. As court officers escorted him out, Marcus took a deep breath. He had done what so many before him couldn't. He stood up to corruption, not just for himself, but for every innocent person Carter had wronged. The courtroom began to clear, whispers of justice filling the air. A reporter rushed up to Marcus. "How does it feel to bring down a corrupt officer?" Marcus didn't smile. He simply said, "This isn't about bringing someone down. It's about lifting the system up." Outside, protesters had gathered, some angry, some relieved. A young boy approached Marcus, eyes wide with admiration. "Because of you, I want to be a lawyer someday." Marcus knelt. "Then promise me one thing. Always fight for the truth." As he walked away, Marcus knew this was just the beginning. Justice had won today, but the fight wasn't over. What do you think? Should more people stand up against injustice? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more powerful stories.